everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name, again, I think I've met just about everyone in the room, but my name is Fred McIntosh. I'm the Director of Admissions here at Prep for Prep. I'm joined today by our admissions officers, Kendra Pettis, admissions officer Kendra Pettis, and admissions coordinator Damali Slow, and admissions committee member? Speak loud. Fatima Kuyate. Excellent. What grade are you in? 7th grade. And where are you in school? Where are you in school? At Columbia Prep. All right, excellent. You all heard that, right? Fatima Kuyate, 7th grader at Columbia Prep. And so this meeting, I promise you, will be very quick and very much to the point. The first thing I want to do is congratulate you and welcome you again to the second level of the Prep for Prep admissions process this year. What you should know, we talked about this during the information sessions in kind of vague numbers. This year, about 5,600 students were nominated for the program. 3,316 students sat for the first level exam, and only 973 have made it to this part of the process. So 973 out of 3,316 of already the top students in the city and surrounding areas. So I want to make sure that you appreciate the accomplishments of yourselves and your kids. And I'm not going to ask you to take a round of applause, but I will not step away and discourage it if you want to give your kids a round of applause. So now we face the logistical reality of having 973 families going through the second level process, which, as many of you know, is a very detailed process. And there are a lot of things that can get lost as we go through the process. So that's the reason we have this meeting here today. We want to make sure that we have everything straight for all the families that are as part of the process, to make sure that you have every opportunity to have a chance for admission to the program this year. Okay? So, I even took notes. I have 4 things that I wanted to talk to you about. And that was the first one. So I want to urge you once again, it's May 12th, and class is starting in about 6 weeks. We are trying to admit the class as quickly as possible. We completed about a little over 500 applicant folders. We've admitted over 40 students. We still have 2/3 of the class to admit, half the folders to go through. And so the only way we can go through those folders is if we have all the documentation that we've requested from you and that you've attended all the appointments. So the first thing, again, I want to urge you to do is if you have an appointment, and I know that sometimes you get them on short notice, if you have an appointment for an IQ test or an interview, please do everything you can to keep that appointment. We are very much backed up on appointments right now, and so if you miss an appointment that we schedule for you, it hampers our ability to get your folder completed. So if you have an appointment, do be sure to keep your appointment if you can. A couple of the documents that we asked for, I want to make some clarifications on. One is the income information. We asked you to submit your 2011 tax information. And by that tax information, I mean 1040s. Right? If you haven't submitted it for some reason, you got an extension, or you don't submit an income tax form, then submit your 2010 if you have them. And if you do not have a 2011 or a 2010 1040, then you should please, in addition to submitting a W-2 if you have it, let us know that you don't submit 2010 or 11 tax return. It can be as brief as an email, a couple of sentences. Just let us know so we know not to bother you for that form because you don't submit it. But we do need 2011 1040s. That's the best information that you can give us. Second best, 2010 1040 income tax forms. And if if the parents are not together, then we do need that information for both families. So if mother's apart from the father, we need that information from the mother and the father in their separate households. And again, if that information is not possible for you to obtain, you need to tell us that, please, because we're going to come back to you and ask for it. So you have to tell us, the father hasn't been in touch with the child, or the mother hasn't been in touch with the child, or some other extenuating circumstance that makes clear that you're not able to get that tax information. Because that's the biggest thing right now that's keeping me from actually making decisions, is incomplete tax form information. So please make sure to submit that. Grades. We request 2 marking periods of grades. First and second marking periods. So especially for those of you who may have thought you completed the application process in, say, December or January, and you only submitted 1 marking period, please make sure to submit that second marking period of grades. And once again, if you don't get a second marking period of grades until June or sometime later than now, let us know that. You can email that information to us, you can call us and tell us, but let us know that so that we don't have to run you down and ask you for that information, because we will not consider a folder complete until we have that information. Okay? And then the 2 little things. I mentioned that how important it is for you to keep your IQ and interview appointments. It does occasionally happen that we ask families to come back and take a second IQ, have students come back and take a second IQ, a shorter form IQ. What we're looking for in the application, I get this question every day, what are we looking for? What is the criteria? And we're looking for a full sense of what the student's capabilities, motivation, and commitment are, right? And so sometimes we can read an entire application, just like all the materials that we have, and not have that complete sense, and can be helped by getting a student a second IQ exam. So several of you have been called to come back for a shorter form second IQ. Please, again, keep that appointment if it's requested. It's completely separate from the first exam. If you've already come for an IQ test and we ask you to come back for a second one, those are completely separate. But do make sure to keep those appointments if you get them. And only a handful of you are going to get that request. And I'll say the same thing. We ask you to come in for interviews. Your child comes in on a date for interviews. Many of you have already come for interviews. On occasion, we don't get enough information to be able to make a decision based on the interviews that your child had the first time. So we will ask your child to come back for a re-interview. That does happen on occasion. So don't be alarmed if that happens. Okay? All right. And then the last thing I want to do before we get to any questions that you have and getting the information that you're going to receive from the admissions officer and admissions coordinator. You got a letter from us several weeks ago, many of you, asking if you're applying to alternate programs. And we got a lot of questions about that. If you're applying to the De La Salle Academy, if you're applying to ABC, those things. Once again, it's not a problem for you to apply to those programs and also apply to prep. It will not adversely impact your opportunity to be admitted to prep for prep. But it's very, very important that you let us know that you're doing that. And I think there are a number of reasons why it's important. I'm not even going to go into the details now, but please do let us know so that we can talk to you about the implications of applying to other programs and what you might have to do if you're choosing one program or another. And the programs I'm particularly thinking about are ABC, TEAC, and De La Salle. Those are the 3. If you're applying to a public school gifted and talented program, that's not something that is a concern. But again, if you have questions about that, email or call us. But it is very important if you're applying to other independent schools or other independent school programs that you let us know that. Okay? All right. I feel confusion in the room. So, Please ask questions so that I can clarify. If you have questions, so I can clarify anything that's confusing. Ms. Slow reminds me that letters might have gone out to some people who were in the room, who got deadlines from us that, the materials had to be in by a date, May 10th, a date prior to today. Don't worry about that. If you're here, that's an indication that you're interested in completing the process, and we will not worry about any deadline that we set for completion of the application process that's before today. So if that's a concern, don't worry about it. Any questions? Please? Yes. No, that's a great question. If your child's teacher teaches all of the subjects that we ask for the recommendation for, then the teacher can submit one recommendation. We don't need multiple recommendations. We ask for recommendations for English, social studies, and math. So if your child has one teacher who teaches all three of those subjects, the teacher can hand in one recommendation for the child. That's absolutely fine. You can certainly let her know, she's not sure about that. Yeah. Yes? If you have
a teacher or teachers who want to apply, I went to my Suzuki and it seemed to have a response and what do you do?
The first thing I would say to that is press them as hard as you can. It's really, really important and very, very valuable for us to get teacher recommendation information from the kids. If you've tried a number of times, if you called and report the teacher said flat out that they're not going to complete a recommendation for the child, let us know that. And we'll talk to you and deal with it on a case-by-case basis. But do the absolute best you can to get that recommendation because it's the most helpful information that we can get from the school about your child's progress. Yes?
My son, this is the interview last April 30th, so what I do now?
Your child what?
This is the interview.
Missed the interview on April 30th?
Yes.
Shame. At the end of the meeting, we'll direct you to set up another date. You'll come down and we'll set up another date to come. Please don't miss that date. Please don't miss the date. Yes? You have the paperwork today? Yes. Yeah, we'll take it at the end of the meeting. Yeah. Yes. So how do we rank the different parts? We look at it all together. And we're going to have multiple opportunities to see. So, for example, if the child is nervous, we'll see them in different contexts, right? We'll see them in the IQ test with their tester. We're going to see them in interviews. We're going to see how teachers see them in the classroom. So all those things, we'll take all of that into account. So I couldn't possibly give you a number, percentage of what each different part of the process, how we weigh that. But we look at it all in context. And that's why sometimes we come back to you and say, we've looked at it all and we're just not quite sure. And so we need to have a child come back for another interview or we need some other information from you. Yes? The IQ test? It's an academic, the IQ test is an academic assessment and it tests the children across their learning styles. So it tests...
Is it similar to the original testing that they went through or?
Is it similar to what?
The original testing that they went through?
It's a one-on-one test with a psychology doctoral student or PhD, and someone who's obviously trained to administer IQ tests. And they will test the kids on a variety of skills, and it will test them across across learning styles, including their verbal ability, their written ability, their memory, all those different things. Is the IQ test after the interview? It depends. We schedule the students as quickly as we can schedule them, and they may have an IQ test before the interview, they might have the interview before the IQ test. It really depends. Your child had an interview and an IQ test on the same day? Oh. So you're talking about that your child came to us at 4 p.m. and went up and had an interview and also had other stuff that they were doing? There's a work packet that we ask, thank you, Kendra. There's a work packet that we ask students to complete during the time that they're up there for their interviews. So the interviews they're up there for 2.5 hours, right? Like you come at 4, you leave at 6:30. So they'll spend about 40 minutes of that time in their interviews, and the rest of the time they're working. That's not the IQ, that's completely separate. It's a packet of materials that we ask them to complete on math, on reading comprehension, and on writing. That's it, right? Yes?
Did I understand you to say that the second part, the second IQ test, or that, we'll now further with the second IQ test, or? And then the other question, I don't know, I apologize for the thing. Did you say there's a specific date on which all your decisions will be made? So, in other words, by June, I don't know, whatever, you'll determine who's in, who's not.
So the IQ test, and that's a great follow-up to your original question, which is how do we consider all the different things that we ask the kids to do? So there are occasions on which we get an IQ test report back, and we look at that in the context of the entire application, and we say, this doesn't feel like it's representative of everything else we think we know about this child. And so on those occasions, we do ask students to come back and take a second, shorter form IQ exam. That's why that happens. It happens to a pretty small minority of the students. But I wanted to, and I hesitated to share it today because it's confusing, I know, but I wanted to get it out there because a number of you will get that call. And you'll say, why am I being asked to come back for an IQ test? That's the reason. And in terms of the date by which we'll let you know, we're doing on a rolling basis. We've already given, I think, about 400 decisions out. We've accepted a little less than a third, about a third of the class, and we'll continue. So as soon as your folders are complete, we'll have the opportunity to review them, and we'll make the decisions as quickly as we can. Classes start on June 27th, so obviously decisions have to be made before then, and we're trying to make them as far before that date as possible. I would love to get several hundred more decisions made by the end of May. I can only do that if you cooperate with me and complete your folders, please, if you haven't done that already. Yes? So if you brought documents today, first of all, thank you for bringing documents today. And second of all, you will have an opportunity in just a couple of minutes to give that information to us. And we will mark it off and you'll give it to one of our admission staff here. Yeah, in just a minute. Okay? Yes. If a 6th grader is accepted to the program, they will go through the same 14-month process as a 5th grader would. Yes. Okay. All right. There was less confusion than I thought. Either that, or so many people are so confused you can't even formulate questions to try and clear it up. But I'm going to be optimistic and say that you all clearly understand of the process now. And I'm going to turn things over to Kendra Damali, left at the moment. So here's what I want to do. Okay. Okay. So, probably didn't hear that, but here's what we'd like you to do. If you have materials that you would like to hand in, and your last name, your child's last name begins A through L, please come to this side of the chapel. If you have materials that you'd like to hand in and your child's last name begins with M through Z, please come to this side of the chapel, to this aisle, and we'll take those materials down. If you have questions that you would like to ask me that are completely separate and apart from handing materials in, please come up to the stage. If you have no materials to hand in and no questions, then you can feel free to leave. Thank you so much for being here.